Well, a lot's changed that hasn't been reported in the media, I think. A lot of things about China tend to be the headline articles these days and features, but Japan's changed a lot since its long recession ended around 2012, 2013. During that period, a lot of smaller Japanese companies that are not big names found a different way of doing business. And they're very eager for foreign technology, foreign partners, foreign ideas, products to deploy in the Japanese market. And that's the essence of the opportunity for Australia. Yeah, I think there are three key sectors where you'll find the Japanese will accept a proposal or a program quicker than others, and I would nominate sort of tourism, given the large increase in the number of foreign tourists entering Japan and Australia's expertise going back 20 or 30 years. Education, there is a need for foreign education institutions to bolster Japan's tertiary education in particular, and there is no reason why Australia as an English-speaking country should not supply that extra expertise. Finally, I think in sport, Australia has a reputation not only in winning events, like Jason Day has just won the USPGA, but we also know how to stage major events and stage them very well, and to prepare athletes and sportsmen for that. And Japan aspires to be a stronger sporting nation, so we should contribute to that. Those three sectors are my three key ones. Well, the interesting thing is that you hear of a protected sector like agriculture in Japan, which has been such a difficult thing in trade negotiations, but actually people who are operating in agriculture and fisheries in Japan are very aware that they're inefficient, and whilst they want those trade barriers there to protect them, they still crave technology, know-how, whatever, in order from foreign competitors, in a sense, to improve their prospects. So if you carefully negotiate and carefully build relationships with people in agriculture or fisheries, and even in areas I think like media, especially online, smartphone-related technologies, then there's an opportunity there in Japan which is very large, and Australia has that capacity, but I don't think a lot of people realise that it's attractive to people behind those trade barriers in Japan. Well, for large Japanese companies who have the most capital to deploy, opportunities in Japan are shrinking. So to look for growth, they have to go outside Japan, and that really means M&A as much as it does new greenfields ventures. So you saw just in the last month the Financial Times newspaper in London has been bought by the Nikkei newspaper group in Japan, and there's been many other such large M&A deals. So Australian companies looking to build their own future or to sell an existing business by way of a diversity strategy or whatever, they should think of Japanese as potential buyers for those businesses and to realise shareholder value. Likewise, Japanese companies, small to medium-sized ones that still have some good financial capacity, they may see an Australian partner as ideal to go into a third market, Middle East, parts of Southeast Asia, or certainly in the English-speaking world, Britain. So you might find a medium-sized manufacturer with a terrific product, but limited capacity to work overseas, wants to sell in Europe, Britain, and an Australian company might be the ideal partner for that. So these kind of things have not been really thought of before, but they're being driven by the need to find growth outside Japan for Japanese companies. So it's again a matter of introduction, building the relationship, finding a sort of a common modus operandi for doing these things. These are the sort of partnership type agreements. Or if it's a sale of a good business in Australia or New Zealand, then these Australian companies should knock on the door of Japanese names, both here in Australia and in Japan, to look for strategic purchases of those businesses or brands. Well, bear in mind Japanese companies have been doing business with counterparts in common law countries like Australia for decades. So they're quite comfortable with English language contractual documents and so forth. And certainly intellectual property protection in Japan is world class. So my experience has been there are not that many differences between the legal systems of each country, and whilst you don't want to over-lawyer a transaction, the basic framework within which these partnerships or M&A deals work, it's not as difficult as people may think, and it's certainly a lot easier than in China.